Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters, and welcome to our review of The Boogeyman.
Dad, you have to listen to me.
Okay. I'm listening. Sweetheart, let me handle
From director Rob Savage comes the latest Stephen King adaptation starring Sophie Thatcher, Vivian Laura Blair, David Deschmelton, and Chris Mencia. Yes, this is something that we were kind of, I guess, maybe a little bit interested in. I don't think it was huge on either of our lists as far as just most anticipated. It was kind of one of those things where it's like, could be a flash in the pan, could be a nice surprise. I reviewed the trailer as a short, and we never really followed up on it after that.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I don't think either of us were really anticipating it. You always have so many different Stephen King properties coming out, whether they're full novels or they are short stories like this one. I mean, King has written so many different properties that a lot of people take a crack at different iterations of them. So you never really know what you're going to get. It tends to be a mixed bag. Sometimes you have the higher budgeted stuff. Sometimes you have the real low tier stuff. So it's really hard to tell what you're going to get when you kind of go into a lot of these different King properties.
Absolutely. And, I actually made an effort this time around because it was a short story out of the Graveyard Shift to check this thing out. There are a bunch of people who've done readings of it just on YouTube. I think it's about a half hour long of a listen. But we both actually got a chance to listen to this before we went into it. And, I think that definitely got me a little bit more excited. I definitely love Stephen King's writing and a lot of his work. Obviously I've listened to mostly because I'm more of an audiobook person, just because of time constraints and things, a lot more of his bigger stories and things like that, a lot of the heavy hitters. So a lot of the stuff in Graveyard Shift, I wasn't too familiar with. And when I first found out that this was an adaptation of a Stephen King story, I was like, oh, that's a little interesting. It's just something so plainly called The Boogeyman. It's like I had no clue what to expect. So when I listened to that adaptation and saw just kind of the angle that they were taking, it got me, like I said, very much more interested in how they were going to tell this story. Because when you listen to that story and you see the movie, or at least the trailer for this movie, it looks completely different. And then you kind of dive into this a little bit more and you see that it's like, okay, so they're kind of taking a slight adaptation of that story and then building off of it, which I just thought was a really interesting idea. And I got to say, for the most part, I would say really worked for me.
Absolutely. And, I also did, Dylan sent me over the audiobook version as well. So I was able to listen to it prior to us going to the theater to check this out. And I got to say, the short story, very broad. I mean, I think they really touch on things that hit home, especially for new parents or just parents in general. And it's one of those concepts. I mean, the Boogeyman, a story as old as time, you know what I mean? Where a lot of people talk about it. There are different iterations, different variations of a lot of things like that. So again, looking at the Boogeyman in general, very broad topic. So, but we always talk about short stories are the best to be adapted into films because you get a chance to take 18 pages, 20 pages, whatever it is, and expand upon it, not just do a verbatim story of whatever the author had written. And I think the Boogeyman's a perfect example of that, where they take the garnish, I guess, maybe of the original, and they splice it in. But that's not the actual full story to be told. We're picking up with a completely different family after the fact, and we're kind of seeing how the Boogeyman affects them, and which I thought was really interesting because you see the things that are familiar to you in the short story, but then you don't know where you're going. When you're 15 to 20 minutes into this film with new characters, you have no idea what kind of twists and turns you're going through.
I agree. Yeah. And I think that Rob Savage definitely did a bang up job on this as far as just, expanding the story, both in a visual aspect. Cause they, like I said, in the short story, they don't give you a lot. It's a lot of stuff that's hinted towards, but they really took the time to go in there and build upon this world and really give you a sense for more what the Boogeyman itself actually is. And we got to mention, this is also been, adapted to the screen from writers Scott Beck and Brian Woods. Honestly, Luke, you made a comment walking out of the theater that's I did not actually process. I knew they were writers on it, but you said that one of your complaints, and I don't want to get too far ahead, is just saying that maybe the monster was a little too Quiet Place like. Well, the two gentlemen who wrote this also wrote A Quiet Place. So maybe you're getting that crossover appeal there a little bit. But yeah, I thought that they all did a really great job working together. I know I listened to the King cast just this past week where they interviewed Rob Savage, and he said that he also took a pass at the script, even though he is not fully credited here as a writer. But yeah, I think all in all, the team did great. I thought they did a great job of bringing this to the screen. It has that Stephen King feel. I genuinely feel like this is up there as far as some of his definitely more recent adaptations, but I definitely think it has that tonality that I enjoyed about some of those, mid to late 90s adaptations as well.
Yeah, and that's where it's like King in general has a knack for, character development and just kind of that world building. And again, how we do jump off a little bit from that initial story there. I think that the big story here is this family dynamic between
Mhm.
Sadie, Sawyer, and the father. His name is escaping me right now, but we really have this close family unit that, getting into the original source material is kind of there, but not really in terms of being able to visibly see it. It's kind of more so reminiscing about it. This one we get to actually see, and they're dealing with a very traumatic event that has happened to them, and kind of going through the motions there with this new entity. And it's one of those things where you can kind of probably draw parallels with maybe quite a few different stories. But like just looking at it, I think this one has a unique place in terms of the tension that they do build, and just taking advantage of, the Boogeyman story in general, kind of putting their own spin on it.
I agree. And, you do bring up that central family is, kind of the heart of this story. And it definitely is. But I really got to say that I enjoyed Sophie Thatcher's performance,
Hmm.
especially. I thought that she carried this movie beautifully. She is a very likable, very, I guess, layered character in this sense. She's not paint by numbers at all. You do get a sense for just her struggles, but also the sense of her strength. And I would say that she's definitely one of the better, lead characters that we've seen in a while. Definitely up there with the most recent outings from like Evil Dead Rise and Terrifier 2. I thought that she really carried this film, and I definitely can't wait to see what more she does. And Vivian Laura Blair did a great job as well playing Sawyer, the younger sister. She has some of the scarier moments to deal with, being the younger child, and obviously dealing with the boogeyman. He's going after young kids, so it's like she gets to deal with the threat a little bit more head on in some points up until the end. And I thought that she really sold those moments. There's one involving a PlayStation that I thought was really great, and I loved everything they did. I thought that was very well thought out and creative. And yeah, I think it's a really fun scene, and I think she did a great job.
Yeah, and kind of just adding different elements into it. When we look at Sawyer's character, giving her this little, and you see it in the trailer, so it's not really a spoiler at all, but she has got this like little ball that this lights up, and the usage of that to build tension and to just keep the audience uneasy and at the edge of their seat, it works so well. There are at least
Mhm.
three scenes that I can think of, and I know we're not diving into spoilers, but they use it so well of just this lighted ball rolling down a hallway or under a bed or any, and you're just going from, your eyes are darting from one side of the scene to the next side of the scene to see if you're catching anything, because again they do a lot of great jump scares in here, and it's like
Mm.
once you're at ease, that's just when you're most vulnerable because they're ready to do it again.
Absolutely. And these aren't really cheap jump scares at all. I mean,
No.
like, there might be one or two, but I think that they're, for the most part, they're very effective.
Yep.
And then, I gotta say, one of the big centerpieces of the movie. I know that we might debate on this a little bit. I know that you weren't harsh on it, but it's definitely one of your hangups coming out of it would be the Boogeyman himself. I thought that it was, overall a very well executed concept. I did appreciate the kind of hiding him in shadows for the most part. I didn't want to see too much of him. I just wanted to get enough. And for the most part, I feel like we got that. Some of my favorite elements that they had with this character are the eyes.
Yes.
In the darkness, I thought that was some of the scariest stuff. And I really liked how they used it. I think overall, I would agree with you on your criticism. So I'll pass it on to you so that way we could talk a little bit more deeply about that.
Yeah, one of the things that you brought up that I did want to point out, especially from a tension perspective, is the usage of the eyes kind of glowing in the dark. They use
Hmm.
it a lot in here, and it doesn't get old. Sometimes when you use tricks like that, it's like, oh, they're doing this again and again. Every time, it's a great tension builder. Going back to a character playing the PlayStation and the looking at eyes, it just works so well. And kind of using the PlayStation to her advantage in a sense, I think was really well done. Yeah, so my criticism was more so with that kind of the boogeyman, the creature, I guess, whatever you want to say, in general, especially for me. I mentioned to you prior to recording this, they do such there's an effective opening scene here that really unsettles you, and there's some dialogue there which, from where I jumped in my head, was we're going to get more of a, I guess, humanoid kind of looking boogeyman in a sense, and they didn't go that route here. Like Dylan had already said, I did get some Quiet Place vibes throughout this, which is, it didn't take me out. It was just something I was hoping for more, I guess, more of a humanoid kind of entity, just to kind of add that kind of creepiness factor, especially when the source material in general. And there's some scenes of one character actually catching a glimpse of this thing doing something to a child. So it really kind of had me hoping for something different. But I think the way they use the creature here is very effective. Like you said, they put it in the darkness, they keep it in the shadows, and they really use it to build that tension.
Absolutely. And, I agree with you. The overall design in that aspect, I guess, of how it's portrayed through most of the film, I think can be a letdown for some. I think that there is a pretty big redeeming moment in the third act of getting a little deeper into the monster itself. But overall, I still think that the heart and soul of it is definitely, like we said, going to lean into those dark moments with the eyes and the tension that it builds, and just how they decide to show and when to show it. Like, again, there's another really effective scene in the kitchen, and it's one of the best scenes in the movie. And overall, I gotta say I enjoyed this movie more than I thought I was going to, and it's definitely one that I can't wait to revisit at home. And just get to sit down with it. I could see myself popping this on every once in a while, and definitely it gets me kind of in the mood to really write some tension building sequences. And I get a lot of vibes of like Lights Out from this. I get a lot of vibes of other these kind of mid-range mid-range to smaller budget horror films that have that modern tinge to them, but they still hold, they don't go into that territory of that modern kind of cheesy crappy kind of horror. They really know how to take that setting and use it to their advantage, like we said with the PlayStation scene and other things. And I think that they did a great job here, and I got to give everybody, the cast, the director, all props. I went in expecting to think it was just okay, and I came out really satisfied and really happy.
Yeah, and for me, I'm in the same boat as you. I really went into this, even listening to that audiobook and being very pleased with the source material. I was still a little hesitant. I felt like maybe we were going to go in here and to see another King throwaway property, to be like, oh, we got it out there. Maybe we still have that fire starter hangover. I don't know, but
Mine's
um,
Children of the Corn.
oh gosh, I forgot about that. Me, I still have not watched, but so the Boogeyman, not on that playing field at all. It was really well done. Again, a lot of great tension, a lot of great scares in this. This is something that I definitely want to go back and check out. Had a lot of fun with. Um, the writers really made this their own thing. There was, toward the end, we started expecting something, and they kind of switched it again. I think it was perfect.
It did
Um,
work good.
yeah. Overall, I highly recommend the Boogeyman. Again, I thought this was going to be just a throwaway property. If you're on the fence here, don't sleep on this film. Definitely go out to the theater to check this one out. It's definitely worth the price of admission.
I agree. I definitely would say that's a good sentiment there. Don't sleep on it. Go out and see this. I think you'll have a lot of fun with this. The only thing I'm gonna say, and we won't dive too deep into it, is that if you go to the theater, please respect other people in the theater. Don't talk throughout the entire movie, and it's okay to be scared, but remember that you're not there to entertain everybody. We had a pretty rough crowd, I gotta say, with this one. I was not pleased with that.
This is true.
Definitely be respectful when you're in the theater. People are paying a lot of money to see these things, and it was that bad that I felt like I had to mention that.
Yeah, the directors, the actors, the writers are all being paid to entertain us, and that's why we're all there. So, leave it to the pros.
Absolutely. But alrighty, guys, it's going to wrap us up here for our review of the Boogeyman. Let us know if you went to check it out this weekend, or if you're just finding this a few weeks or months down the line. Let us know what you thought, as well as check out the rest of the stuff we got on the channel. We just got to check out the new doc hitting Screambox on June 6th, going over Robert Englund and his career. It was a wonderful piece, and I think you'll definitely enjoy the review, as well as we just talked Hollow Man on Monday, and that was a lot of fun. Definitely check out that podcast, as well as all the other content we have on the channel for you. And yeah, we got a lot of great stuff on the horizon as usual. Lots more reviews and other videos to come. So stay tuned and stick with us. So until next time, I'm Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.